never thought I'd be the kind of person to ban my own mother from my wedding. Growing up, I'd always imagined her there beside me on my big day, helping with my dress, maybe shedding a happy tear as I walked down the aisle. But life has a funny way of shattering those childhood dreams, doesn't it? My name is Sarah, and I'm 33 years old. In 3 months, I'm supposed to marry the love of my life, Michael. We've been together for 5 years, and he's everything I never knew I needed: patient, understanding, and endlessly supportive. But this story isn't about our love. It's about the woman who gave me life and then spent the next 3 decades making me question whether that was a blessing or a curse. My mother, Linda, wasn't always like this. When I was young, she was the fun mom, the one who'd let us have ice cream for dinner when Dad worked late, who'd build pillow forts that took up the entire living room, who'd dance with me in the kitchen to old Motown songs. But somewhere around my 15th birthday, something shifted. Maybe it was the divorce. Maybe it was losing her job at the bank. Maybe it was just the weight of disappointments that had been building for years. Whatever it was, she found her answer at the bottom of a wine bottle. At first, it was just a glass or two with dinner, Mommy's grape juice. She'd joke when my younger brother Jake would ask for a sip. Then it became a bottle. Then 2. By the time I graduated high school, she'd moved on to vodka. Easier to hide, she said, though we all knew. We always knew. The thing about having an alcoholic parent is that you become an expert at reading micro-expressions, at gauging the slur in their voice from the first hello on the phone, at knowing exactly which floorboards creak when you're trying to sneak past their room at night. You become a master of damage control before you even know what that means. I moved out at 22, the first chance I got. Jake followed 2 years later. We thought distance would help, that maybe without us there as her audience, she'd find a reason to get better. We were wrong. Instead, she found Kevin. Kevin was her yoga instructor, 15 years younger than her, with a man bun and a vocabulary that consisted mainly of words like vibrations and energy healing. He moved in after knowing her for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I'd known Michael for 3 months before he even got a key to my apartment, but apparently, my mother operated on a different timeline when it came to love, or whatever she called what they had. The transformation was immediate and jarring. Suddenly, my conservative, cardigan-wearing mother was posting pictures of herself at music festivals, flower crowns perched on her graying hair, holding up peace signs like she'd forgotten she was 58, not 28. She started calling me Les, and when she did, it was always to gush about Kevin's latest business venture: crystal healing, essential oil pyramids, cryptocurrency for yogis. I'm not making any of this up. But beneath the new age facade, the drinking got worse. Now it was ceremonial wine and consciousness-expanding spirits. Kevin enabled it, participated in it, celebrated it. Their relationship was a tornado of dramatic breakups and passionate reunions, usually playing out over social media for all our family and friends to see. The engagement should have been one of the happiest moments of my life. Michael proposed on our anniversary, at the same restaurant where we'd had our first date. He'd even arranged for the waiter to bring out my dessert with the ring hidden inside a chocolate rose. It was perfect, intimate, everything I'd dreamed of. I called Jake first, then my dad and stepmom, then my best friends. I saved my mother for last, already dreading the call. She was drunk when she answered. I could tell immediately, that particular breathlessness in her voice, the way she overpronounced certain words as if to prove she was sober. "Sarah, baby," she squealed. "What's the special occasion for calling your dear old mother?" "Mom, I have news," Michael proposed. "We're getting married." The silence lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Then came the tears. Loud, theatrical sobs that made me pull the phone away from my ear. "My baby's getting married. Kevin. Sarah's getting married." I heard Kevin's voice in the background, something about cosmic alignment and manifestation working. Then my mother was back, her voice shifting to that tone I knew too well, the one that meant she was about to make this about her. "We'll help plan everything. Kevin knows this amazing shaman who does wedding ceremonies. Very spiritual, very authentic. And I've been taking dance lessons. We could do a mother-daughter dance. Oh, and Kevin's band could play at the reception. They do Grateful Dead covers with a Sanskrit twist." I closed my eyes, feeling Michael's hands squeeze mine. He'd heard enough of these conversations to know what was coming. "Mom, we're going to keep things simple. Traditional, nothing too crazy." "Traditional? Sarah, honey, traditional is boring. You need to express yourselves," Kevin says. "Mom, I have to go. We'll talk later about the details." But we didn't talk later. Not really. Every conversation became a battle. She wanted to invite her entire yoga class. She insisted on making a speech that she'd already started writing. 6 pages about her journey as a mother and how Kevin had helped her find herself. She kept sending me links to venues that were completely wrong. A nudist resort, abandoned warehouse that hosted raves, someone's backyard marijuana farm that also did weddings. The breaking point came 2 months before the wedding. I'd finally agreed to have dinner with her and Kevin to discuss the wedding plans. Michael offered to come, but I knew that would be a disaster. My mother had been asking to meet him for months, but I'd kept making excuses. The truth was, I was protecting him. And maybe protecting myself from the humiliation of him seeing where I came from. I arrived at the restaurant to find them already 3 drinks in, laughing too loudly at their own jokes. Kevin stood to hug me, reeking of patchouli and weed. My mother's eyes were glassy, her lipstick smeared. She'd clearly pre-gamed before the pre-game. "There's my bride!" she shouted, causing several tables to turn and stare. "Kevin, doesn't she look radiant?" "It's the engaged glow." We hadn't even ordered appetizers before she started her demands. She wanted to bring 12 people from her spiritual circle. She wanted Kevin to read a poem he'd written about universal love. She wanted an open bar, just wine and beer, nothing crazy, despite my explicitly telling her we were having a dry wedding. "Mom, we've discussed this. No alcohol at the wedding." Her face crumpled like a child who'd been told no candy. "But Sarah, it's a celebration. People expect to drink at weddings." "You're being ridiculous." "What's ridiculous is your behavior every time you drink. Remember Cousin Lisa's wedding? You called her a gold digger during your toast. Or Dad's remarriage? You threw your shoes at the DJ. That was years ago. I've grown. Tell her, Kevin." Kevin nodded sagely. "Linda's on a journey of self-discovery. Wine is just part of her process of opening her chakras." I stared at him, wondering if he actually believed the words coming out of his mouth. Her chakras seemed plenty open already. The dinner ended with my mother in tears, Kevin consoling her while shooting me disapproving looks, and me driving home with a migraine that would last 2 days. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came the next morning when I woke up to 17 missed calls and a series of increasingly unhinged text messages. The first few were apologetic. "Baby, I'm sorry about last night. I just want to be part of your special day." Then they turned accusatory. "You're embarrassed of me. That's why you won't let me meet Michael." By message 10, she was in full victim mode. "I guess I'm just the worst mother in the world. Maybe you'd be happier if I wasn't around at all." And finally, the threats. "If you don't want me at your wedding, just say so, but don't expect me to forgive you when you regret this." I called Jake, needing someone who understood. He answered on the first ring, already knowing why I was calling. "She drunk texted me too," he said. "Something about you being brainwashed by Michael's family." "I haven't even introduced her to Michael's family yet. I'm trying to save that disaster for after we're legally bound." Jake laughed, but it was hollow. We'd learned to use humor as armor against our mother's chaos. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I can't have her there if she's going to be drinking, but if I don't invite her, she'll make your life hell," Jake finished. "More than she already is." That weekend, I sat down with Michael and finally told him everything. Not the sanitized version I'd been feeding him for years, but the truth. About finding her passed out in her own vomit when I was 16. About the time she drove Jake to soccer practice so drunk that he called me crying from the parking lot, begging me to come get him. About the thousands of dollars I'd given her over the years for emergencies that always seemed to coincide with her bar tabs. Michael listened without interrupting, his face cycling through anger, sadness, and something that looked like grief for the childhood I should have had. When I finished, he pulled me close and said the words I needed to hear. "Whatever you decide about the wedding, I support you. She's your mother, but that doesn't mean you have to let her hurt you anymore." I spent the next week drafting an email to my mother. I must have rewritten it 50 times, trying to find the perfect balance between firm and compassionate. Finally, I sent it. "Mom, I love you and I want you at my wedding, but I need to set some boundaries. No alcohol at the wedding. This is non-negotiable. You may bring Kevin as your +1, but no additional guests from your yoga circle. No speeches unless they're pre-approved by me. You need to meet Michael before the wedding, in a sober, appropriate setting. If you arrive at the wedding intoxicated, you will be asked to leave. I know these might seem harsh, but they're necessary for me to feel safe and happy on my wedding day. I hope you can understand and respect these boundaries. Love, Sarah." Her response came 10 minutes later. She was already drunk, calling me instead of writing back. The conversation, if you could call her screaming while I held the phone away from my ear a conversation, lasted exactly 3 minutes before I hung up. But in those 3 minutes, she managed to call me selfish, controlling, judgmental, and just like your father. She said I was punishing her for being happy with Kevin. She accused me of being jealous of her spiritual awakening. And then, the grand finale. "If those are your rules, then I'm not coming to your wedding." "Fine," I said, and hung up. The silence that followed was deafening. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing from my mother. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive Facebook posts. At first, it was a relief. I threw myself into wedding planning with renewed energy, finally able to make decisions without wondering how she'd react. Michael and I chose our songs, finalized the menu, sent out invitations. His parents, who were everything mine weren't, stable, supportive, gloriously normal, helped with everything. But then the flying monkeys arrived. That's what therapists call the people narcissists send to do their bidding, and my mother had assembled quite a collection. First came Aunt Diana, my mother's sister, who'd enabled her drinking for years under the guise of being supportive. "Sarah, honey, your mother is devastated," she said when she called. "She's your only mother. You'll regret this." "Has she stopped drinking?" I asked. "Well, no, but Then we have nothing to discuss. Next came my grandmother, frail and in her 80s, calling from the nursing home. Sarah, dear, I don't have many years left. I'd like to see my family together one more time. That one almost broke me. I loved my grandmother, and the thought of disappointing her was agony. But Jake, bless him, took that bullet for me. He visited her and explained the situation, showing her some of the text messages our mother had sent. Grandmother never called about it again. The most surprising flying monkey was Kevin. He showed up at my apartment on a Tuesday afternoon, looking uncomfortable in what appeared to be his attempt at respectable clothing, khakis, and a polo shirt that still had the tags on. Sarah, we need to talk about your mother. I didn't invite him in, there's nothing to talk about, she knows my boundaries. You're killing her spirit, he said, with complete sincerity. She's a free soul, and you're trying to cage her. I'm trying to have a wedding where my mother doesn't humiliate herself and everyone else. But that's who she is. You need to accept her authentic self. I laughed, actually laughed in his face. Her authentic self? Kevin, her authentic self is a mean drunk who ruins every important event in our family's life. If that's who she really is, then she's right. She shouldn't come to my wedding. He left after trying to guilt me with a few more new age platitudes about forgiveness and energy. But something about that conversation clarified things for me. They all wanted me to accept her as she was, but no one was asking her to be better. No one was holding her accountable. They'd all rather I sacrifice my peace, my happiness, my wedding day, than ask her to stay sober for 6 hours. A month before the wedding, she broke her silence with a Facebook post. She didn't name me directly, but everyone knew what it was about. It's heartbreaking when your own children judge you for finding happiness. After years of sacrifice and dedication as a single mother, I finally found joy and spiritual fulfillment, only to be rejected by those I love most. Kevin and I are focusing on surrounding ourselves with positive energy and those who truly support our journey. To those who choose judgment over love, I wish you peace. The comment section was a battlefield. Her yoga friends offered support and crystals. My father's family, who knew the truth, stayed silent or offered vague platitudes. But then Michael's mother, sweet, quiet Margaret, who'd never said a harsh word about anyone, commented, praying for healing and sobriety in your family. My mother blocked her immediately. 3 weeks before the wedding, everything imploded. I was at work, in the middle of a presentation, when Jake called. He never called during work hours unless it was an emergency. Sarah, you need to sit down. What happened? Mom's in the hospital, and Kevin's been arrested. The story, as I pieced it together from Jake, the police report, and eventually the neighbors who witnessed it, was both shocking and utterly predictable. My mother and Kevin had been drinking since noon. Day drinking is self-care, she'd posted on Instagram that morning. By evening, they were in a full-blown fight about money. Specifically, about the $10,000 Kevin had invested from their joint account into a cryptocurrency called Yoga Coin without telling her. The argument escalated. Voices became screams. Screams became thrown objects. The neighbors called the police when they heard glass breaking and my mother screaming. When the officers arrived, they found Kevin with a gash on his forehead from a wine bottle, and my mother locked in the bathroom, threatening to hurt herself if he came near her. Kevin was arrested for domestic disturbance and drug possession. Apparently, his spiritual enlightenment included a significant amount of mushrooms and MDMA. My mother was placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold after the officers determined she was a danger to herself. I should have been shocked. I should have been devastated. Instead, I felt relieved. Finally, there would be consequences. Finally, someone else would see what Jake and I had been dealing with for years. I didn't go to the hospital. Jake did, because he's a better person than me. She was sedated when he arrived, but when she woke up, she immediately went into victim mode. Kevin had stolen from her. Kevin had manipulated her. Kevin had introduced her to things she wasn't ready for. Never mind that she'd been an alcoholic for 15 years before Kevin came along. Never mind that she'd chosen him, moved him in, given him access to her accounts. The psychiatric hold was extended to a week when she failed to cooperate with the doctors. She refused to admit she had a drinking problem, insisting she was only there because of Kevin's betrayal. She demanded to use the hospital phone to call me, but I'd already told the staff not to put her through. I needed space. I needed to focus on my wedding, which was now 2 weeks away. Jake became the go-between, updating me on her condition while respecting my boundaries. She was going through withdrawal, which made her angry and cruel. She told the psychiatrist that I was marrying Michael for his money. He's a teacher, so that was particularly laughable. She claimed Jake was gay, and in denial, he's happily married to a woman. She insisted our father had turned us against her, despite the fact that Dad had barely spoken to her in a decade. On day 6 of her hold, something shifted. Maybe it was the medication finally balancing out. Maybe it was the reality of Kevin being gone. He'd been released on bail and immediately fled the state. Maybe it was the social worker explaining that she'd need to make changes if she wanted to avoid involuntary commitment. Whatever it was, she finally admitted she needed help. She wants to see you, Jake told me over the phone. She says she wants to apologize. No. Sarah. Jake, my wedding is in 8 days. I have family coming in from all over the country. Michael's parents have spent thousands of dollars. I have a final fitting tomorrow. I will not let her derail this. What if she's really changing this time? I wanted to laugh. Or cry. Or both. How many times have we been here? How many times has she promised to change? I can't do it anymore, Jake. I can't keep hoping. The day my mother was released from the hospital, I was having my bridal shower. The contrast was surreal. While my friends were playing games and giving me lingerie that made me blush, my mother was signing discharge papers and being handed a list of AA meetings. She went to stay with Aunt Diana, who called me that evening. She's doing better, Sarah. She's agreed to go to meetings. Maybe you could. My wedding is in 6 days. If she's serious about getting better, she'll understand why I can't deal with this right now. But she's your mother. Yes, she is, and I'm her daughter. The one whose wedding she's already ruined with her drama. I'm done talking about this. I hung up and turned off my phone. Michael found me crying in our bedroom an hour later, surrounded by gift wrap and bows, holding the card my mother had sent to the bridal shower before everything happened. It was beautiful, expensive, with a long message about how proud she was of me and how she couldn't wait to watch me walk down the aisle. She'd signed it, "Your loving mother, forever and always." "Do you want to talk about it?" Michael asked, sitting beside me. I keep thinking about all the things she's going to miss. The getting ready together, the photos, the mother-daughter dance we were never going to have anyway because she'd probably be too drunk to stand. I'm mourning things that were never real. They were real to you. The hope was real. That night, I made my final decision. I called the wedding venue and added my mother's name to the do not admit list. Along with Kevin's boss, I hired security, just one off-duty cop, but enough to handle any disruption. I told the photographer that if she showed up, he was not to take any pictures. I informed the DJ that there would be no mother-daughter dance. Each phone call felt like another nail in the coffin of the relationship I'd wanted us to have. Jake tried one more time to broker peace. 3 days before the wedding, he arranged a phone call between us, supervised like we were children in a custody dispute. My mother sounded different, tired, smaller somehow. The medication had dampened her usual dramatic flair. "Sarah, I'm sorry," she began. "I know I've hurt you. I know I've ruined so many things. I wanted to be happy. After your father left, after everything, I just wanted to feel good again. I understand that, Mom. But your happiness came at the cost of everyone else's. You chose alcohol over your children, over and over again. I didn't mean to, but you did. Every time you got behind the wheel drunk, every time you embarrassed us in public, every time you chose the bottle over being present for us, you did choose. I'm getting help now. Good. I'm glad, but it doesn't change anything for Saturday. You're not coming to my wedding." The silence stretched between us, filled with years of disappointment and broken promises. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Will you ever forgive me?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean you get to be there for the milestones you haven't earned. I love you, Sarah." "I know, Mom, but sometimes love isn't enough." The day before my wedding, while my bridesmaids and I were getting manicures and trying to pretend everything was normal, my mother made her last desperate play. She didn't come herself. She was still too proud or too ashamed for that. Instead, she sent my grandmother. Grandmother arrived at the hotel where we were all staying, dressed in her finest outfit, the one she'd bought specifically for the wedding. She was in a wheelchair now, pushed by a nurse from the home, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. "I need to speak to my granddaughter," she announced to the room full of my friends. Alone, we went to the hotel bar, which was thankfully empty at 3 in the afternoon. She ordered a gin and tonic. "At my age, dear, I'll drink what I please," and fixed me with the look that had terrified and comforted me throughout my childhood. "Your mother is a fool," she began, which wasn't what I expected. "She's been a fool for years, and I blame myself for enabling it. I thought if I loved her enough, if I helped her enough, she'd pull herself together. I was wrong. Grandma, let me finish. I'm not here to plead her case. I'm here to tell you that you're doing the right thing. It breaks my heart that my daughter won't be at your wedding, but it would break my heart more to watch her ruin another important day for you." I started crying then, the ugly kind of crying that ruins makeup and makes people stare. My grandmother reached across the table and took my hand in her papery, soft one. "But I also need you to know something," she continued. "Your mother is sick. Not just the drinking, that's a symptom. She's been sick since she was young, probably bipolar, definitely depressed. Your grandfather and I should have gotten her help. But in our generation, we didn't talk about such things. We thought she'd grow out of it. She never told me any of this. She probably doesn't fully understand it herself. The alcohol has been her medication for so long she doesn't know who she is without it. And that Kevin character, well, he was just another form of self-destruction." We sat there for an hour, my grandmother filling in gaps in my mother's history I'd never known. The suicide attempt at 17, the miscarriage before I was born that sent her into a spiral, the months she spent in bed after my father left, unable to function while Jake and I fended for ourselves. "I'm telling you this not to excuse her behavior," grandmother said. But so you understand that your decision to protect yourself isn't cruel. It's necessary. You can't save her, Sarah. Only she can save herself. That night, at the rehearsal dinner, I was surrounded by love. Michael's family had embraced me completely, his mother stepping into the role mine had vacated. My father and stepmother were there, proud and supportive. Jake gave a speech that made everyone cry, about how I'd been more than a sister to him. I'd been his protector, his stability when everything else was chaos. But there was still an empty chair. Everyone noticed, but no one mentioned it, the ghost of my mother's absence haunting the celebration. During a quiet moment, Michael's father pulled me aside. "I know this is hard," he said. "My brother was an alcoholic. We had to cut him off for years before he got help. He missed my wedding, my kids' births, so many important moments. But eventually, he got sober. It took losing everything, but he did it. There's still hope, Sarah. Just not on your timeline." I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not complete peace. There would always be a part of me that wished things were different, but peace with my decision. Peace with protecting my joy. Peace with choosing myself. My wedding day dawned perfect, clear skies, warm but not hot, with a light breeze that made my veil flutter dramatically in all the photos. I woke up in the hotel suite surrounded by my bridesmaids, who'd stayed up late with me watching rom-coms and eating pizza, making sure I didn't spend my last night as a single woman thinking about my mother. As I was getting my hair done, Jake knocked on the door. His face told me everything before he even spoke. "She's here," he said. "In the parking lot. She's not trying to come in, she's sitting in her car watching people arrive." My hands started shaking. The hairdresser paused, concern on her face. My maid of honor, Amy, immediately went into crisis mode. "I'll handle it." "Security? Already aware," Jake said. "They're keeping an eye on her. She seems sober, for what it's worth." "What does she want?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "To see you in your dress," she said. "Just to see you, from far away." She promised she won't make a scene. I looked at myself in the mirror, half-done hair, no makeup yet, wearing a silk robe with bride emblazoned on the back. This wasn't how I'd imagined this moment. But then again, nothing with my mother ever went as imagined. "Tell her no," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "If she wanted to see me in my dress, she should have gotten help years ago. She doesn't get to show up now and pretend to be the mother of the bride." Jake nodded and left. 20 minutes later, he texted me, "She's gone." I thought I'd feel guilty. Instead, I felt free. The ceremony was everything I dreamed of and more. Walking down the aisle, I saw all the faces of people who truly loved and supported me. Michael's parents in the front row, beaming. My father trying not to cry. My stepmother taking photos even though we had a photographer. Jake standing as a groomsman, giving me a thumbs up that made me laugh. My grandmother, resplendent in purple, blowing me a kiss. Michael's face when he saw me, that's what I'll remember forever. Not the empty space where my mother should have been, but the full presence of the man who chose me, chaos and all. During the ceremony, our officiant spoke about building a new family. About choosing the people who support and uplift you. "Marriage," he said, "is not just about joining two people, but about creating a sanctuary where both can flourish." I squeezed Michael's hands, knowing we were already building that sanctuary, brick by brick, boundary by boundary. The reception was joyful in a way I hadn't anticipated. Without the constant anxiety of monitoring my mother's alcohol intake, watching for signs of impending disaster, I was actually present. I danced with my father, both of us crying a little. I danced with Michael's father, who whispered, "We're so proud to have you as a daughter." I even danced with my grandmother, holding her hands while she swayed in her wheelchair, telling me stories about her own wedding 65 years ago. During the toasts, Jake surprised me. "Sarah," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "has been my hero since I was 7 years old. She taught me that love sometimes means letting go, that strength sometimes looks like walking away, and that family is about more than blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who fights for your happiness even when it's hard. Michael, you're getting someone who knows how to love fiercely and protect that love. Treasure her." There was no mention of our mother, no explanation for her absence. Those who knew, knew. Those who didn't need to. The text came during our honeymoon. Michael and I were in Greece, sitting on a terrace overlooking the Aegean Sea, when my phone buzzed. I'd kept it on only for emergencies. And seeing Jake's name, my heart dropped. "Mom's in the hospital again. It's bad." I called him immediately. The story came out in fragments. After leaving my wedding, she'd gone back to Aunt Diana's and locked herself in the guest room with a bottle of vodka she'd hidden there before her hospital stay. Diana found her unconscious the next morning. "Alcohol poisoning," the doctors said. If Diana had waited another hour to check on her, she might have died. "She's asking for you," Jake said. "She says she needs to tell you something important." "Is she dying?" "No, but Sarah, they're talking about long-term care, involuntary commitment. Diana can't handle her anymore, and there's no one else." I stood on that beautiful terrace, in my honeymoon paradise, and felt the familiar pull of guilt and obligation. Michael watched me, reading my face like he'd learned to do over years of these crises. "You don't have to go," he said when I hung up. "This is our honeymoon." She made her choices. "I know," I said, "but I need to. Not for her, for me. I need to say goodbye properly this time." We flew back 2 days early. Michael never complained, never made me feel guilty. He just held my hand on the plane and reminded me that whatever happened, we were a team now. The woman in the hospital bed looked nothing like my mother. She'd aged a decade in the 2 weeks since the wedding. Her skin was yellow, jaundice, the nurse explained, from liver damage. Her hands shook constantly, but her eyes, when they focused on me, were clearer than they'd been in years. "You looked beautiful," she said. "I saw the pictures on Facebook. Amy's mom posted them." "You shouldn't have been there, Mom." "I know, I needed to see, I needed to know you were happy." "I am happy. Despite everything, I am." She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "The doctors say I need to go away. Rehab, for a long time. Maybe a year." "Good. I might not make it, Sarah. My liver. They say it's pretty bad." I sat down next to her bed, not taking her hand but close enough that I could if I wanted to. "Then you need to fight. Not for me, not for Jake, but for yourself. What if I'm too broken to fix? Then at least you'll have tried. That's more than you've done in 15 years. We sat in silence for a while. Finally, she spoke again. "Kevin's gone. Took everything from the joint account and disappeared. The police say I probably won't get any of it back." "I'm sorry," I said and meant it. Not about Kevin, he was always going to leave, but about her need to always have someone to blame, someone to save her or destroy her so she didn't have to take responsibility for either. "Will you ever forgive me?" she asked, the same question she'd asked before the wedding. "I already have," I said, surprising both of us. "But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean trusting you again. It just means I'm letting go of the anger so it doesn't poison my life the way alcohol poisoned yours." That was 6 months ago. My mother is still in rehab, a state-run facility 3 hours away. She's been sober for 180 days, the longest stretch since I was 15. Jake visits her once a month. I've gone twice, once for family therapy, which was a disaster, and once for her 90-day chip ceremony. She looked healthier, had gained weight, was starting to look like the mother I remembered from childhood. She writes me letters now. Real letters, on paper, because the facility doesn't allow smartphones. They're rambling and sometimes hard to read. Her hands still shake, but they're sober thoughts, unfiltered by alcohol or the performative nature of texts and social media. In them, she tells me about her recovery, about the other women in her program, about the job she's hoping to get when she leaves. Receptionist at a veterinary clinic, nothing fancy, but something. She tells me memories from my childhood, things I'd forgotten or never knew. How she used to sit by my bed when I was sick, terrified she'd lose me like she'd lost the baby before me. How proud she was when I graduated college, even though she was too drunk at the ceremony to remember it clearly. How she keeps a picture of Michael and me from our wedding. One Amy's mother sent her, taped to her wall. I write back sometimes. Short letters, nothing too personal. I tell her about my job, about the house Michael and I are buying, about Jake's promotion. Safe topics. Surface things. But it's more than we've had in years. Michael has been my rock through all of this. He never pushes me to forgive more than I'm ready to. Never judges me for the complicated feelings I have about her. His parents have become the parents I needed. Stable, present, genuinely interested in our lives without being invasive. His mother taught me to knit, saying it helped with anxiety. His father takes us to baseball games, explaining the rules with patience even though I never quite understand them. My grandmother passed away 2 months ago. At her funeral, my mother was given a supervised release to attend. She stood at the back, apart from the family, wearing a simple black dress I'd never seen before, probably from the rehab's donation closet. She looked small, diminished, but present in a way she hadn't been at family events in years. After the service, she approached me. We hadn't spoken since my visit to the hospital. She looked healthier but fragile, like someone recovering from a long illness, which I suppose she was. "Thank you for letting me come," she said. "It wasn't my decision. Jake arranged it. Still, I know you could have objected." We stood there awkwardly, two strangers who shared DNA and devastating history. "Finally," she said, "your grandmother left me a letter. She wrote it before she died, knowing I'd need it. She said she was proud of you for protecting yourself. She said she wished she'd been strong enough to do the same with me when I was using. Grandma enabled you for years. Out of love. The same way you enabled me, until you couldn't anymore. The difference is, you learned to stop before it destroyed you." That was the most accountability I'd ever heard her take. We didn't hug or reconcile. She went back to rehab and I went home to Michael. But something had shifted, slightly, like a door opening just a crack after being locked for years. Last week, I found out I'm pregnant. Michael and I weren't trying yet, but we weren't not trying either. When I saw those 2 lines on the test, my first thought wasn't of joy or fear, It was of my mother. Would I tell her? Would she be part of this child's life? Could I trust her to be a grandmother when she'd barely managed being a mother? I called Jake to tell him the news, and he asked the same questions. She's doing better, he said carefully. But better isn't well. And better isn't reliable. I know, I said. I'm not making any decisions yet. I have 9 months to figure it out. Whatever you decide, you know I support you, and this kid is going to have the best uncle in the world. Yesterday, I received another letter from my mother. This one was different. Shorter, more focused. She'd gotten her 6-month chip. She'd been approved for the receptionist job. She was starting to make amends, real amends, not the hollow apologies she'd given before. She'd paid back Aunt Diana for the damages to her house. She'd written apology letters to everyone she'd heard at family events over the years. She was working through the 12 steps with a sponsor who didn't tolerate excuses. At the end of the letter, she wrote, "I don't expect to be part of your life again. I understand that some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. But I want you to know that getting sober isn't about getting you back. It's about becoming someone worthy of the daughter I have, even if she never speaks to me again. You saved yourself by walking away. Now I'm trying to save myself by accepting that you had to." I haven't written back yet. I'm not sure what to say. Part of me wants to tell her about the baby, to give her something to fight for. Part of me knows that's dangerous thinking, the same pattern that kept me trapped for years, believing I could be her reason to get better. Michael thinks I should wait. Let's see where she is in another 6 months, he says. If she's still sober, if she's working, if she's stable, then maybe we can consider supervised visits. But right now, we protect our family, the one we're building, intentionally, carefully, with all the love and stability I didn't have growing up. Sometimes I catch myself doing something my mother used to do, singing while I cook, dancing randomly to songs on the radio, and I have to remind myself that not everything about her was broken. There were good parts too, buried under the addiction and chaos. Maybe those are the parts worth salvaging, the traits worth passing on to our child. My therapist says I'm grieving the mother I never had while also grieving the mother I did have but lost to alcohol. It's a complicated grief, she says, because the person is still alive but the relationship is dead. Or maybe not dead, maybe in a coma, waiting to see if it will wake up, transformed, or slip away entirely. For now, I'm focusing on the present. On the home Michael and I are creating, filled with houseplants I somehow haven't killed yet, and wedding photos where everyone is genuinely smiling. On Sunday, dinners with his parents, where wine is served but no one gets drunk, where conversations don't end in tears or accusations. On the life growing inside me, who will know boundaries and consistency and unconditional love that doesn't come with conditions. I think about my wedding day often. Not with sadness for what was missing, but with gratitude for what was there. The people who showed up. The promises Michael and I made to each other. The moment I chose my own happiness over someone else's dysfunction. That's the thing about setting boundaries with toxic people, even when they're your parents. It feels like betrayal until you realize it's actually loyalty. Loyalty to yourself, to your future, to the family you're creating. My mother couldn't be at my wedding because she couldn't be the mother I needed. That's her tragedy, not mine. Last night, I felt the baby move for the first time, just a flutter, like butterfly wings. I put my hand on my stomach and made a promise. You will never have to protect me. You will never have to be the adult. You will never have to wonder if I love you more than I love my demons, because I'm facing them now, before you arrive. And maybe that's how cycles break, not with dramatic confrontations or perfect reconciliations, but with quiet decisions to do better, to be better, to love better. My mother is trying to break her cycle in rehab. I'm trying to break mine by maintaining boundaries while leaving space for hope. Neither of us knows if we'll succeed, but we're both finally trying. The wedding was just the beginning. The real work of marriage, of healing, of building something new from the ashes of what was burned, that's happening now, every day, one small choice at a time. And for the first time in my life, I believe it's possible to have a happy ending, even if it looks nothing like the one I imagined as a child. Dancing in the kitchen with my mother to Motown songs, back when love felt simple and mothers were superheroes and wine was just something adults drank with dinner. My story doesn't end with my mother and I reconciling at my wedding, mascara running as we embrace while everyone applauds. It doesn't end with her getting sober and becoming the grandmother my child deserves. It might not have a neat ending at all, but it does have this. A woman who chose herself, a marriage built on solid ground, and a future that isn't defined by someone else's addiction. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything.